Super professional. Hello, welcome to the first episode of the Moo Stu Podcast. The aim of this podcast is to just shine a light on, no offense, normal people. So people doing things day to day that you may not hear about. Otherwise, if they didn't have a platform to chat about their life. Today we have, in the very first episode, the lovely Naomi of Elements Yoga. And we're super excited to have a chat with you. Welcome.
Yay.
How are you?
Thank you very much for having me.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you can tell everybody a little bit about yourself, a bit about your background.
Okay, so I am currently a yoga teacher and Pilates teacher based in Dublin. I teach all of the things, classes, workshops, trainings. I train people to become yoga teachers, retreats, and I like writing, and also I have also recorded podcasts. So they are the things.
What sort of writing do you do?
Like it used to be in the early days of the internet, more like blogs, but that's old fashioned now. So now it's more like newsletters.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
to people who've signed up to your newsletter?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, subscribers.
Are you putting like lifestyle stuff on there, or strictly yoga?
It's more like, so my, I guess, like focus over the years is kind of like mental well-being and reflective kind of processes and contemplation. So a lot of what I do personally is that idea, like reflecting on a concept or a theme, and then I'll write about that, and then how maybe other people can maybe find value with that or apply it to their lives.
Cool.
So yeah.
So what I know of you, because I obviously know you about 5 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
Whatever. I do know you have that kind of holistic approach to things, about like you have a good big picture view on what makes people healthy and what makes people well. Probably straight into the deep end, but why the mental well-being and all that? Why is that a thing for you?
Why is that a thing for me? I guess like it's like, I don't know if I can ever answer these questions like definitively, but it's like definitely say how I grew up. Like there was like a lot of turmoil and kind of like I grew up in a very volatile kind of household. It wasn't necessarily like calm and peaceful all the time. So I think when anybody, well, I can't answer for anybody, but I know from my experience that growing up in that situation, I definitely was led to kind of questioning, okay, this doesn't make sense. Like, how can I find health in life, or how can I find contentment, or like a feeling of, I don't know, just freedom or joy or any of those things that may be for some people like unconditionally granted in their home life, and they weren't necessarily for me. So maybe that was the initial drive to it, and then paired with exercise, I think they were just great outlets for me. Like just sort of sitting back and maybe reading or thinking about things a little bit more, and then also having the outlet of exercise just felt like, oh, well, this is the way I can feel good in life. Like that was initially, I guess, a drive for me, for sure.
I'd say it's a case for a lot of people as well, that like fitness or yoga or whatever it may be is actually an outlet. I don't know if there's obviously people who haven't had that turmoil or whatever like that, but I don't think anybody has a fully smooth ride in life.
Yes, exactly.
So I think people find their outlets as well.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think like, I know for sure when I was in secondary school, it was like, you know, like, and it leads as well to teaching. It's like everything that felt like, oh, I feel like good here and I feel like I'm seen, was got to do with learning, and then PE and like moving and just being like, oh, I feel happy and this is fun, like learning how to play basketball or whatever it was. And like, I know there was particular points in my teenage years that I felt like this is the answer, you know, and over obviously as I, you know, mature more as an adult, you know, that becomes a little more refined or complex at how I understand that. But the teenage version of me just thought, yeah, exercise is great. Like, this feels great.
Very instinctual.
Yeah.
Do you think, hard to say, but like, because I think it's a bit of both. I can imagine it's a bit of both. But do you think one of it was just getting away? So like in this moment I'm playing basketball, because I know myself is like literally like this, I can't think about anything else. I'm in something, I'm doing something. Do you think it was That, or which was equal parts for me, it was, do you think it was the fact that you actually got to use your body or your voice or express yourself or, you know, exert? What do you think was...
Like, I think, you know, in my situation, like, I definitely developed early quite a lot of, like, anxiety, like, you know, self-consciousness, kind of semi being nervous a lot of the time. Whereas when I was in sports or games, that was just gone. It was just like, I'm focused on something. I think that was the big thing. Like, you know, I'm focused on, I'm going to try and dribble this ball all the way to do a layup or whatever it is, like a new skill I'd learned. And it's like, I don't know, like, could I answer that, you know, I was thinking, oh, I get to feel free here or whatever. Like, it's not like those thoughts were there, but it's more like that feeling was there by default, because I'm focused on something. And it was the same like that. Like, I loved English class or things where I was really focused on being, you know, I had to, like, I just loved study and I loved learning and being involved in something. And maybe you could say in the early years that's like a distraction from other troubles or worries, and yeah, fair enough, it probably is, but it was also like a gateway to like potential, or, you know, that feeling of, okay, I can be a person who can experience myself beyond like worries or, you know, negative thoughts or something like that.
Funny, we had a giggle before the start of the podcast about the questions and all that. Straight into the deep end. But you touched on kind of anxiety and stuff like that as well, and it's something with the theme of the podcast being about like normal people and the general things we all have in common, but not enough people speak about it. At least in a relaxed context day to day. Anxiety and depression, like you spoke a little bit about anxiety there, but like I think even as a business owner, like those things come quite easily. Have you had any kind of other experiences or stuff that you could offer around that theme? And if
basically, like, my father was an alcoholic, so like the situation I grew up in was just constant, like I said, like constant turmoil, constant, like, you know, fretting about like different things. Every day was always up and down of, you never really knew what was going to happen. So like I said, I feel like anxiety starts to come out of that because, you know, a child in that experience never gets to feel like, here I'm safe and I understand what's going to happen. Like, there's a routine of, you know, bedtimes or any of those kind of things. And like, I did get granted some of them some of the time, but not all of the time. So it wasn't like consistent. So there's always maybe an underlying, you know, what's going to happen next, or I don't want to get in trouble, or this kind of thing, like that sort of feeling as a child. And what can happen, I think, you know, moving into young adult, or like you were kind of saying, like more mature adult, working for myself, if any of us, and like that's something I feel very strongly about, if we don't have a certain amount of awareness of, okay, that's why I feel that way, or that's why this is triggering fear or worry or whatever, like if there's not a certain level of awareness, it starts to leak into how we're acting or what we're doing. And like you say, like you can go periods where it might be, you know, depression or anxiety, or just maybe for me it was more like periods of just kind of perfection driven frustration, like everything had to be like, oh, I better achieve, to kind of feel some sense of I guess worthiness or like success, and that can start to leak in and fuel my actions until I came to, you know, all of this kind of work that I do now, that like I understand those feelings are still there, but I'm more taking my action from a more maybe positive, aware place, as opposed to the deep negative place.
I think you've done a stellar job of kind of just getting around that and understanding it and kind of dedicating your life to working it. Because you only figure this stuff kind of looking back as well. Like
exactly.
Brings me into another thing of, as a teacher, so you're a teacher who teaches people how to teach rather than just leading classes, which I think is super interesting. I think us all as teachers are healers, and I think one of the, in a nicely selfish way, we're helping ourselves first, and I think acknowledging that is quite important. So day to day, I get to live the life that I picture as being the life that I want to live or whatever. Do you feel like that's true, that we're kind of healing ourselves, and if so, how do you feel like the medium which you teach is helping others and helping yourself in the process?
Yeah, big questions.
Sorry.
So yeah, like I definitely think.
Just checking in on the camera one.
I definitely think the first aspect of that question is, do you think we're healing ourselves? And like, I think anyone who's doing any work that is driven by like what I was kind of speaking about, like a process of learning about ourselves, or a process of you're just fascinated about it and you're diving into something, like you could be working in a coffee shop or like a restaurant or something and still have a process of healing, because it's like you're crafting and you're learning about yourself through that expression or that craft. So yeah, I definitely think any profession can allow self-healing if that's almost the intention or the way you want to go towards work. Because a lot of people just go towards work like, I just want to get paid and I just want to go home at the end of the week and go out, so it depends how you're approaching your work. And it's the same for learning in a school environment. If you're approaching it like, oh, I'm excited and I want to learn because it makes me, like have more potential or feel good, then that's what you'll get, as opposed to like, oh, I have to do my exams or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, the healing I definitely think can happen. Whether that's more prevalent for teachers, I don't know. I can't answer that. I'm sure there's lots of artists out there or musicians or whatever who feel equal amounts of healing in their careers. And then the next part of the question was like, like I suppose an element of all of that, and like this is one part of me training people to be teachers, is that like one thing that started to kind of leak into yoga over the years is like kind of figuring yourself out as you go along. And I think that's very dangerous. Like I think that, this whole kind of modern effect of, I'll, post up about my thing that happened to me yesterday to somehow connect to other people and share. Like that's fine if you're a random individual and your friends are commenting on it. But I think it's really important for teachers to realize, as soon as you step into a role as a coach or a teacher, you're now in a different position in society. People are looking at you to like somehow have some different reflected answer than the person on the street. And if you're kind of posting up like, or commenting in class, oh my God, this thing happened to me yesterday and I don't have a clue, like it's not you're a bad person, but you're not in the position now to be doing that. You're influencing negatively, I think, the people that are listening to you, because implicitly, and it's kind of going back to the first questions we spoke about, like especially people who come from an environment maybe where they didn't get a lot of guidance from their first authority figures as parents. People going to meet a coach or a teacher want guidance, or they want advice, or they want like leadership or somehow mentorship in that role. And if you're maybe flaky or not concrete on what you know and what you don't know, I think that can damage people.
It's incredibly valid, and I think more to that point, it's not only that people are doing it, it's almost like it's a marketing strategy now as well. You see people like the fluffy, and this is one thing that really upsets me actually, is the picture is like almost always like really beautiful and dramatic and flowing hair, and then the post is about depression. It's like it doesn't really match, and the signals are different, or just I'm struggling with this today, let me know your thoughts. And it's real like, I just want to drive engagement, and just people are living through this cyclical kind of thing where they're not actually figuring their shit out, and they're not helping people in the process, and then they're living out their. So this the negative side of teaching, while you're figuring your shit out, is like, as you said, kind of explicitly putting all the stuff that you haven't got figured out yet and using that as a platform to put that out there, rather than like, I'm teaching people and I'm in my professional environment being a teacher. I'm understanding all the stuff I'm working on myself in the background. The people don't need to know that. Like, so it is.
And it's very complex. Like I suppose maybe my perspective is a little bit different coming from being a school teacher. I would never say those things in front of a group of teenagers.
Yeah.
Like, I would never walk into a room with a group of teenagers as a school teacher professional and say, do you know what happened to me yesterday? Oh my God. Like, you know, so I don't see that as paired with my profession as a yoga teacher either. And I think that does not, like you said, mean that I am not working on those things in the background. Like, I go to psychotherapy, I have mentors, I am always getting advice, but I don't need to use other people to figure that out for me. Like, I have like a setup that helps me with that. So then when I show up as the teacher, it's refined, like it's reflected, and I know what I'm, maybe a theme that I want to discuss, and it's not about me anymore. It's about the people that are paying to be there. So yeah. Of
course, yeah, because when I call it selfishly from my end, I'm like I always joke, because like I get 30 hugs a day for people who pay to come here, and it is like a joke, and I'm not playing on it as well, but it is that it's like, okay, well, I realise in my life that I need a certain amount of people day to day, I need a certain amount of stimulus and all that sort of stuff. But again, it's just in there. You don't have to live it out there, and I'm not like clinging onto it for dear life.
Yeah.
You know, it's very much a professional place. I think it's super important. What got you into? Sorry, when you're doing your retreats or your workshops, do you leave space for conversation like this? Because you strike me as somebody who actually does have like time. I think I probably learned it from you actually is just having a moment or at the end of class where you just have space to have either a chat or a specific, like, you know, we'll talk about this today, or what's your thoughts on this, which I think is different to having like a big emotionally charged Instagram post. So yeah, what sort of space do you leave in your workshops or your retreats?
So the last workshop I did this year, I actually did a series of workshops on like a kind of a focus on mental well-being, and they're like my most favorite, because the whole idea is having space for discussion. And like that, again, it's kind of like, I don't see it as me having to give an opinion on anything at all. It's that, you know, something I've reflected on, and that, you know, I can help facilitate a process whereby other people can reflect on the same topic or theme. And I just find that really helpful. Like, you know, it's like your questions today. If you're asked questions that you didn't devise or think of, it's tapping into your brain in a different way, or you're sitting going, oh yeah, I didn't think of it like that way. And that's basically what I think can open a door for people. They're suddenly like, oh yeah, interesting. Or they see themselves in a new, maybe more positive light, or a more compassionate light. So yeah, I think having space for that discussion in a workshop or a retreat is like, in a way that we're contemplating maybe broad questions, or you might reflect on your feelings about a theme or a question, but not necessarily, like you say, an emotional charged, you know, like dramatic event that happened just yesterday. It's more like a broad, open-ended concept. Yeah.
Is it fair to say that there are people who just want to go to yoga, sweat and go home, and then there are people who want that space to chat, and then like differentiate between like trainees who want to be teachers and all that, and obviously the setting is different, I assume. Yeah,
and I think that's another thing we all have to be really careful of, and it comes with a little bit of, you know, wisdom even in your marketing. Like, you know, if we're very clear, like, this is what it is, the people who don't want to come won't come.
Yeah.
So the people who do come, like, by default, if your write-up is very clear, you can almost assume as a teacher walking in, or a coach, like, well, everyone signed up for it. Like, there's at least a little bit of open-mindedness there to what this is about, or a curiosity, or a genuine interest to wanting to be there. And that's what I try to do. It's not like wishy-washy, oh, it's yoga, you know, an exercise, and then suddenly we're talking about mental health. Like, it's in the title, so then if they're there, they want to be doing that. And yeah, I think everyone has different preferences. And I think coming from climbing, I kind of had that perspective as well. Like, there's so many different avenues to climbing. Like, you could be someone who loves going indoors to the bouldering walls, and then you could be someone who's, you know, mad into the 8,000 meter peaks and like mountains and going to Everest. Like, they're just so different, and it's not that one is right or wrong, but it's, you know, both those people could say we're climbers, but it's very different. Yeah. And it's the same with yoga. Like, one person could be really into Bikram yoga and hot yoga and sweating it out and going home, and then another person might be all they do is meditate, but it's still in the realm of yoga practices. So yeah, cool. Definitely, yeah.
You seem like you have that kind of sewn up in terms of you cover all those dimensions. So how long are you a yoga teacher?
8 years now,
cool.
yeah.
Like you said, you've retreats, you've workshops, you teach, train, you're doing class or whatever. So I assume in a week, if not probably a month, you're hitting all those things where you have a retreat, where you have space to help people talk. Then you have the sweaty classes where people can come and go. Is that fair to say? And do you know
that have a mix?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Is that done on purpose for your own kind of like?
A little bit for me, because I think anyone working, it's nice to have your own creative realms explored, and you feel like today I'd like to just do this, or next week that sounds great, I'll do that longer form weekend or whatever. And then also for people, so if you are like, I'd like to go to one of Naomi's things, but I'm not mad into the mental health thing, maybe I'll try her normal class. That's just exercise. So it's for both, I think. Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite to teach?
Definitely longer form stuff. That's one of the areas. Personally, I'm kind of introverted in the sense that it takes me a while, and you've seen me here, it just takes me a while to kind of process, get to know someone, sort of figure out the scenario, and it's just a nervous system thing with me. And I find as a teacher, I like meeting people for an hour, but if I can be with them for a day, or especially on the teacher training, if we're day after day after day, everything just starts to feel more alive to me. Oh yeah, she said that yesterday and I want to touch on that today, and we were talking about that last week, and let's move on from that. It all starts to kind of make more of an experience for me, and I think the people involved, because it feels much more alive to me, I think. I have
such an appreciation for that, because I think there's a huge amount of depth to that, and a huge connection. You can't help but care about the person, and you'll only get to know them if you have 24 hours or whatever. It's 2 8-hour slots. I think it's beautiful, because I'm always kind of aiming for depth here, not width. Width being, I think we talked about it before, is width being 200 members, depth being 50 members that you just know them quite well. We see people here 4 to 7 hours a week, depending on who it is. And all of that time, you're just trying to get to know the person a little bit better. Something as simple as a body language cue. If you know who the person is so. It leads me to beautifully what I wanted to ask you was, what makes a great teacher? Because I think you are a great teacher.
I think, and this has changed just recently this year as well, that it's sort of like what I said earlier, that I actually think a great teacher is, it's nearly nothing to do with content or knowledge. That it's about relationships and modeling what a supportive relationship is. And I have fully come to feel that this year, that if you as a teacher can stand in your own sense of inner authority, inner power, whatever words you want to put on it, and model that to someone who is listening, and whatever the content is, by default they're learning how to do that for themselves. And I think that's a great teacher. To try and put that into maybe simpler language is someone who just knows themselves, knows their boundaries, knows when to say yes and say no, and it has enough security to say, I don't know the answer to that question, and then also can provide a space that no matter what question a person in a group can ask, it's oh, great question, let me think about that for a second. Any of that behavior, I think, makes a great teacher. And then someone can find space to learn and feel good about themselves. I just think that's so powerful. In school, I think the best teachers to me were people, not necessarily that I'm oh yeah, I learned how to make lasagna from my home economics teacher. It's not that. It's I learned from my home economics teacher. I still remember one day she gave us this big talk about family life, and we went into this whole chapter about the family and relationships and what love was. And I remember, I still remember it, and her talking about maybe her own kind of take on certain things, and that's something that maybe not every person is getting, or being influenced to feel like, oh yeah, what is love, or what does love mean to me? And then that's a great teacher. Like opening that up for someone, I think is amazing. So yeah.
It's a really good answer.
Yeah.
And it kind of, again, that's how I think about it anyway, but kind of it means, well, obviously content is important to you, but you come to a stage where it's like, you obviously need to know what you're doing. You need to know anatomy. You need to know all the ins and outs and all sorts. And we need to constantly upskill with that as well. But then you do realise, and I think the fitness industry is starting to realise this a bit more. At least think the better gyms out there. It is about that. It's actually about connection and social interaction and all that. Like people can still say go hard or go home, and that's fine. But like if people actually said like, I go training so that ... If you added so that at the end of every sentence you were saying, it's like so that ... So that what? So I have a six pack. So that what? So that girls like me. You know, whatever it may be. But it's always going to come back to the fundamental human needs, I think. So really.
And it's like, I remember once saying to a group, like, say in yoga, and you do the same stuff kind of here. Like if you're paired up with someone, or you're, especially on training weekends, like you've been on training weekends where they might say, okay, Andy, pair up with this person, and now you're going to look at each other doing a particular move and help each other, you know, or you'll do a drill together. Like I remember saying to a group, like, remember, you're looking at like anatomy, muscles and bones and tissue and whatever, but you're also with a soul, like it's another human. So that if we're in a learning environment, like it's not okay to kind of be like, oh, you did this wrong, or oh, your foot's not there, or whatever. Like people have feelings, and like to kind of, the most important is like, hi, you know, I'm whoever, can I work with you? And like, you know, remembering all those little subtle things of like permission to touch, or like safe space to be like, oh, can I tell you maybe some things that you could work on there, or like what I noticed. And like all of that, I just think is so important that people maybe neglect a tiny bit, like in that teaching, coaching realm of, you know, first and foremost, like you say, you're meeting a person, and like those softer skills are so important for sure.
Big time. I think the thing we are most responsible for is the culture, because the culture dictates that. So like me and whoever the coach is here, whatever like that, like certain things go, certain things don't. And so one of the things like over the last while is it just gets knocked on the head straight away. Like if somebody else is trying to tell the other person what to do, but that hasn't been the aim, it's like, no, just leave it for the moment. And they'll look at you like, oh, I was like, it's just not for now. And that's the easiest way to just knock it on the head. It's like, it's not personal, it's just it's not for right now. But because we've gone through a phase here where we did a lot of partner stretching, where there's a lot of touch involved, and you're almost teaching the person how to like get rapport. You know, you wait for the moment you can feel it, and then you can press on a little bit more and all that. And we do a lot of interactive stuff anyway. So like even putting pressure on the person's lower back for a plank or whatever like that. But in the context of like, build a rapport, feel it, make sense of it, and then you can go on. So you start to understand the interaction. It's relatively informal, but formal enough as in it's not in someone's personal space in the wrong way. I think those are little ways you can kind of sneak in social interaction and get an emotional kind of response out of it. Other people are not like they're smiling, and you know it's so primal. It's so
and there's primal. Like there's nothing wrong with the question, like, is it okay if I work with you, or is it okay if I help you into this position? And like if they say no, like that's their choice. And like, you know, I think that's it. Like that was like a mind blower for me. Like just ask the question every time. Like you know,